What's up, guys? This is Dan from the Headwaters Kayak Shop. Welcome back to another episode. Today we're checking out the Jackson Bite and the Crescent Lite tackle. Two boats that are 100% made in the USA, under $1,000, and really kind of looking to shake things up in that sub $1,000 price point for fishing kayaks. So let's get into it. So to my right, I have the Crescent Lite tackle. This is a new 12'7", 34-inch wide, simplified fishing kayak from Crescent. It features a big open deck layout, a big front hatch, a nice high rocker design. On my left, I have the Jackson Kayak Bite. This one's 11'7", so almost a foot shorter, 35 inches wide, huge standing platform, a little bit higher seat compared to the Crescent. Let's get them both on the water and put them head to head and see how they paddle compared to one another. All right, the first kayak I'm going to jump in is the Jackson Kayak Bite. I've never been in this kayak. This will be my first trip out, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I've been a fan of Jackson kayaks for a long time, and was excited when they see that they were kind of coming after this market and actually doing a fairly affordable price point of $7.99. It's really inexpensive in the marketplace. Their kayak has a ton of built-in features, but not as many bells and whistles as some of the others. First thing I'll say is stability is massive, huge. There's it's just wild. There's so much secondary. The boat barely moves. It's just very flat feeling. The seat itself is actually not that comfortable. I'm surprised that other seats are so good, but this one's got a bar. Like I would definitely have to put a lumbar support, and then on the top section it's kind of got a bar too that you feel. If I was getting this kayak, I would definitely be looking at a full foam life jacket like the NRS Revew or the Stokeless Keeper, something that's going to pad your back a little bit against that bar. Foot pedals feel nice. The deck layout feels huge. It feels so massive. No scupper plugs, but I can see I've got I don't know, 6 scuppers or so under my legs. So far fairly dry at 230 pounds. The capacity on this kayak is 400 pounds, and just judging by the feel and the stability, I think it can handle a paddler 275, 300 without feeling unstable. So paddle over here out of the wind. Hopefully it doesn't come up as much on camera, but I had to paddle across the whole lake in order to get here, and I definitely feel like I'm putting forth some effort to move this kayak through the water. Again, 35 inches wide, 11.5 foot long. That's gonna make for a slower, more pokey kayak. So depending on what it is that you're looking for in a kayak, consider that. When everyone's starting off, they're looking for stability and comfort. But there's a third factor that a beginner doesn't know about because they just haven't spent time in the water, but is the most important factor, is a boat that matches the type of water you're gonna be in and the type of paddler you wanna be. If you wanna be the kind of paddler that gets on the water and covers some distance and goes some miles, you should really be looking at a narrower profiled kayak. The wider the kayak is and the shorter the kayak is, the harder you're gonna work to get from point A to point B. The other thing is, stability is an important factor, but it's not the only factor. I think a lot of people just assume that they want the most stable thing they can get, but it's not based on fact or reality. It's based on, I guess, more of a fear and a lack of understanding. Once you learn your edges and learn how to paddle a little narrower kayak, you'll actually prefer the glide and the efficiency of that kayak over time. Now, it's not for everyone. I'm not saying like one thing fits all, but I am saying don't underestimate the performance side of kayaking just because you're worried about capsizing. Get in some kayaks and feel them out, and I think what you'll find is there's plenty of performance-oriented kayaks that are still very stable. So that's it. So this boat, again, has a huge standing area. So I'm gonna get up in this, easy peasy to stand in, so easy, very stable, no issues at all standing. As I move around, I get a little bit of water splashing the deck, but it all drains right out. Let's take this one through a little obstacle course, because a lot of you guys are in tight places and you need to be able to maneuver to handle this boat. To give you an idea how it maneuvers. One thing I'll say is the primary is so stable. Like, I can just lean way over this thing, and it just wants to stable right up, firm right up on that secondary edge. move around and do stuff. It feels a bit more like a platform, a little bit less like a kayak. Like I'm paddling around a dock. But I'm able to maneuver it and handle it just fine. There we go. So yeah, I mean, it does what it says it'll do. It's stable, decent to paddle, but not a lot of sparks or fireworks when I paddle it. It just feels like a very basic entry-level kayak. So if that's what you're after, like you just want a fishing platform that's stable, has open deck space, easy to rig, the Jackson Bite at $7.99 would be a great choice. It's gonna feel real stable even for a bigger guy up in that 275, 280 pound range. And it's fairly light, easy to haul around. My only complaint would be the seat. I think I would probably do like a lumbar support and a full back life jacket. But all in all, really nice addition to the Jackson Kayak lineup, and it gets them in that price point where they can be competitive against the Vibes, the Three Waters, Crescents of the world. So kudos to Jackson, great job you guys. Let's go compare it to that Crescent and see how we like that. Kind of wanted to give you guys a side-by-side comparison. They both have that huge open deck layout, but look at how massive that is. I mean, just the way they put the tackle storage in there, they carried it all the way to the edges. This one has a little bit more taper on the edges, still nice and wide, but a little bit more of a cockpit feel as opposed to just an complete open deck layout feel. One thing I notice when I do step in these boats, the Jackson Kayak has a little bit of flex in the deck. When I step over on the Crescent Kayaks, it feels rock solid. They do a few more kiss-offs on the Crescent, which mean these little areas on the bottom, all those little spots connect and support the deck. So a little heavier, but because of that, a little bit stouter too. All right, so now I'm over here in the Crescent Lite tackle, and what I'll say about this one is with that lower seat in there, it's a little harder to get up to a standing position. So not as easy to just jump up like it is on the Jackson Bite. So depending on how big of a priority that is for you, just know that you may want to try it out before you hop on. If you're younger, more agile, probably not going to be an issue. If you're a bigger guy, or maybe you got some old knees, you may want something that sits a little higher that's easier to jump up on. But once you're standing, it has good stability. You can lean it side to side. My standing platform is not quite as wide, but still really stable. For the average person, you'll be able to stand up in this thing no problem. One thing I'll say is the seat sits a little lower. It feels more like a performance-oriented kayak, like you're definitely down in the cockpit a little bit more. And I like that personally. It depends on personal preference. Some people like to sit up a little bit, but this is a kayak that I feel like you could start off just recreational paddling and fishing with, but then also take it to some class 1, class 2 rivers, offshore, a little bit more versatile all-around kayak if you're looking to grow in the sport. I feel like in the Jackson Bite, I could get in and immediately anybody could be successful, but you're gonna paddle it for a year or so and probably get tired of it and grow out of it. Whereas this is a kayak that I think even if you upgraded and went pedal drive or went up to some maybe more fishing specific kayak, this is a kayak that you'll keep around in the garage, and it'll be your friend's kayak, it'll be your river kayak, it'll be your camping kayak. I definitely don't think this is something that many people would ever outgrow. So the biggest difference when I'm talking about performance is the ability to move across the water. This thing cuts and glides across the water so much nicer. It's only a foot longer, 12'7", but it really maintains its speed and maintains its tracking much better than the Bite did. The one thing I like about it is because the way they rockered the profile is when I do want to turn it, I can edge this boat. Edging means I'm leaning it on a secondary stability. And when I'm doing big sweep strokes, it still turns on a dime. It doesn't feel like a big long kayak because it's got that rocker bow to stern. So the keel is sort of shaped, instead of being like this, it's sort of shaped like this. So you can maneuver it a lot easier. If I mix my reverse sweeps with my forward sweeps, I can still turn this thing basically 360 in place. So it's cool, you're kind of getting the benefit of the speed of a longer kayak, but the maneuverability is still really good like you'd get on a shorter kayak. A beginner starting out, may feel like this one has a little bit more rock to its edges. It's still super stable, but it is not quite as just flat primary like the Jackson. But again, the ability to grow with your kayak and do a lot more. And stability is relative. Stability, your first trip out is not going to be the same as it will be on your third trip out. So please don't just go buy the most stable thing because you're worried about it. Try some different boats and see kind of where your comfort level's at. One thing I'll say is getting up and down out of the seat. Set this here. It's a little bit more work because you gotta get your feet underneath you. You don't have a stand-up assist leash standard. You could add one, but it doesn't have one standard. But a little bit harder to get up and down out of that low seat. It's the difference of the seat being 3 inches off the deck and 8 inches off the deck. The Jackson definitely sits up higher, which makes getting up and down easier, but again, also limits the performance of the kayak. So everyone has to kind of make a decision, what's the most important for me? What kind of water am I going to be in? You know, there's all these deciding factors, and I hope this kind of gives you a general overview of what to expect, but ultimately you got to pick what's right for you. If you know you're a beginner paddler and you think you're just going to go out there and completely use it for fishing, total recreational, then you may want to go with the Jackson Bite. You might find that one easier to get up and down out of, more stable right off the bat. But if you're the kind of paddler that wants to cover some miles and do a little bit more diversity of water, whether it be rivers, lakes, maybe a little bit in the ocean, I think the Crescent's going to offer a lot more versatility and the ability to grow with you as your skills progress. So anyways, you guys, I hope that was helpful. It was definitely fun, if nothing else. If you have any questions, leave those down in the comment section. Subscribe to our channel here. We've got a lot more of these kind of comparison videos coming out. And until next time, this is Dan wishing you happy paddling. We'll see you on the next one.